Chuck in the comments has got an interesting comment that I don't think that we necessarily defined or described through any
Sure.
of our guests. He wants to know, how do we define an integrator to start with? CSIA just called this out and found many types, IT specific, machine builders, traditional controls, programming, integrators, etc. And because I read the question, I will go take the first whack at this, Jay. I guess so. In my mind, I I kind of consider basically all of the things that we are just describing as an integrator, right? I typically would pull out machine builders. I'm not saying that they're not a subtype of integrator, but I think that if you're building a bunch of the physical product, like the machines or the lines, you are more of a builder or an OEM as opposed to an integrator whose job is to go, in my mind, take a disparate group of services and solutions and either go build a new technology stack, encompassing them or maybe not encompassing them. I have heard many industries kind of consider themselves an integrator, like especially on the IT side, like especially on the ERP side. There are lots of quote unquote like ERP integrators who do a lot of similar work, going and customizing code and solutions and things like that to go specifically fit the end user. And maybe on the other side, going and modifying what the end user is doing so it comes closer to kind of industry best practices, and you don't have to spend the money on modifying the code as it has currently been built and as it generally works for hundreds or thousands of other organizations. So I would, in my mind, say kind of anyone that takes more than one product, so two or more products, and goes and melds them with existing machinery, goes and melds them with existing items at a facility, that is generally how I would describe an integrator. Vlad, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it pretty well. I would only add like a couple of comments. I guess like for me, I always talk in the context of like manufacturing automation, right? So as you've mentioned that an ERP integrator, but to me it would be the caveat, it would have to be a link between, let's say, your plant floor and the ERP system. If they're purely coming in and
Mhm.
setting up an ERP for, let's say, an e-commerce platform, then I would not, let's say, they are in a traditional sense an integrator, but I wouldn't be talking about them in, let's say, the conversations that me and you are having on manufacturing hub. But in any case, I think you've said it really well, where it's meshing multiple systems together. I think whether it is a brownfield or a greenfield application, the understanding is that the integrator is the one that creates the links between machinery. It could be on the mechanical side, it could be on the electrical side, it could be programming, right? But ultimately, they provide all of those services. And I think you've also mentioned really well machine builders. I think that a machine builder could be an integrator if they also come into the factory to install and program the links, between that machine and the rest of the line. But if they're purely creating a machine that then they hand off to whomever, they're not necessarily an integrator in the way that we are discussing it on the show. But I think that's a really good question. I think we've asked some of our guests that same question, and I think we've gotten fairly similar responses. But yes, I'm glad it gets brought up. But again, I think it's a very wide range, right? Like I think that even saying someone who programs PLCs is an integrator, that's still a world apart from a machine builder that comes in and puts in their machine.